So let me tell you a story about me and the little boy that lives underneath the stairs. Okay, that sounds a little bit creepy. One day, I had just gotten back from school, and I went over to where my N64 usually was, but it seems like my parents had hidden it so I wouldn't be able to play it. So I looked to my left, and there, sitting all alone in an armchair, was a little paperback book called Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I didn't know how it got there at first. Some say it might be magical. But either way, I picked it up, I looked at the summary, it seemed interesting enough, and I just dived on in. By the time my mom had come home, I was already halfway done the book and I loved it. Turned out that my grandma actually bought the book for my older brother, who doesn't read at all, so he just discarded it onto the chair, where of course his trash was my treasure. I loved it. I finished it up very quickly, and then at the end of the book I realized that the newest book had just come out. So I begged and begged my mom to take me to Barnes & Noble to get the newest one, and I was soon in love. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets is by far my favorite Harry Potter book out of the series. In my opinion, this book just has the most interesting, suspenseful, mysterious, standalone plotline out of all the books. I liked Gilderoy Lockhart. Seemed like a champ to me. Dobby always annoyed me though. He just reminded me of a masochistic gollum. Precious! From this point on, I went to every single midnight release party. The third book, The Prisoner of Azkaban, is really great, and it's the only Harry Potter book that I finished in one day. We were actually traveling to a campground at the time, and I read it the entire way up, and I just sat around the campground reading. Though my parents yelled at me a lot, it was definitely worth it. Now, the fourth book, The Goblet of Fire, in my opinion, has the most intricate plot line. I honestly didn't understand some of the parts until I read the book through a second time. Speaking of the movies quickly here, though, this was probably the worst of the movies, and that's only because they took out all the important things that made the book so incredible, and they just made the plot line very flat and boring. And here's where my books kind of fall into disarray. Harry Potter and the Order of the Pheonix. I really love all these books a lot, and at one point in time, I really wish to pass down all these books onto my children, but sadly, some bad fates have been bestowed upon the last three of my books. I lent most of my books to my friend Sarah about 3 years ago, as she had been discouraged from reading these books from her parents, but I, being a very good friend of hers, was like, shh. Well, she wasn't the best caretaker of the Order of the Pheonix, as some of the pages are discolored, and that just upsets me a bit. I mean, it's still very legible. It's just a little annoying. Oh, and I was never really that big a fan of Sirius, honestly. Like, I never really grew attached to him as a character. I mean, to die by an evil curtain, that seems pretty lame. And here is the Half-Blood Prince. New Jersey recently got flooded in August, and the sad thing is that this book was kept in the crawl space by my parents as the bottom of the stack of Harry Potter books, and as our crawl space got flooded, it damaged all the pages, and now they look terrible, and it's like, if I gave this to my kid to read, his friends would all make fun of him and be like, your family's poor. It really saddens me to look at the state of this book though, and I feel like if I ever want to read this again, every time I turn a page, I'm just gonna lose a single tear. With the story though, I remember as soon as this book came out, there was so much controversy over, oh my god, Dumbledore died, no, you're a liar, never. And of course, everyone was trying to figure out who this mysterious R.A.B. was, except I looked it up on the internet before the 7th book came out, and everyone was like, duh, it's Regulus Black. And here's my last and final book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I still have the tassel from the midnight release. I picked this book up the night before I went on my last summer camp trip for Boy Scouts. I spent a lot of time at camp reading this book, and when I was done, I would usually put it on the top of my bunk. But if you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll know one important thing about me. I have some bad luck. Another scout kept begging me to read some of the books, so I'm a nice guy, so I said, sure, just make sure you return it to my bunk when you're done. Well, he got the bright idea of putting it underneath of my bunk when it was done. So somehow, a squirrel gets into my lean-to, ignores the Cheez-Its and the chips nearby, and goes straight for a beeline to my Harry Potter book. When I went walking towards my lean-to, I noticed a squirrel randomly ran out of it with a piece of orange paper in its mouth. I didn't think much of it until I pulled out my book, and it was some squirrel's dinner. Why? 2 years earlier, my cat got all sick and bled all over my Hobbit and Lord of the Rings books. Why do all the things I love have to die? So try as I may, I could not find that squirrel to bring it to justice, no matter how many Crucio spells I cast all around. So I guess I'm not gonna hand down my Harry Potter books to my kids, and I'll have to buy them new ones. And that's my story of the squirrel who must not be named. Thanks for watching. Bye. Navrig Night. Evanesco.